The ideas expressed in the following presentations are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of ACI or its committees. ACI web sessions are recorded at ACI Conventions or other concrete industry events and will be made available for viewing free of charge for 1 week. Thereafter, they will be archived on the ACI website or added to ACI's online CEU program, depending on their content. You can earn continuing education credits through ACI's online CEU program. Visit www.concrete.org to register. ACI Conventions provide an opportunity for networking and for keeping up to date with the latest in concrete technology and practices.
Okay, our next speaker is Matt Single. Matt is manager of the soil cement and roller compacted concrete for the Cement Council of Texas. He's been in the association work for many years, 15 years or so, working both with the Cement Council of Texas and also with the Southeast Cement Shippers Group. He has a vast experience in the area of soil cement, and RCC helps out in a lot of that information. And we talk quite frequently about our problems we have. So anyways, with that, I'd like to introduce Matt, who's going to talk about the Port of Houston.
Well, thanks, Wayne. I just like to start by saying that I appreciate, Wayne, you give me the opportunity to share the podium with so many people that I hold in very high regard. I'm to talk today about the Port of Houston and some of the projects they've been doing out there. I'm going to zip through a few of the slides that are redundant, but this one in particular, the Port of Houston, when they started looking at their Bayport facility, they have 1,000+ acres out there that they wanted to develop. They had done one project in conventional concrete, but they had looked at other options. They had heard about RCC paving and explored it. They have specific requirements, as do most everyone with a project, but in particular, they needed heavy-duty pavement, of course, low maintenance, level surface, and I'll touch on that a little later, and speed of construction. And then, of course, everybody's looking to save the almighty dollar. The Bayport Container Terminal Complex is located about 20 miles east of Houston. It's south of the Bayport Ship Channel, and the depth at mean low tide is 40 feet. The intention was to develop this property over the course of 20 years. Full development would include 7 container berths, an intermodal rail yard, and storage facilities as well. The first project that I mentioned was in 2004, Phase 1A, and that was a 60-acre project that was jointed reinforced concrete paving. In 2005, 2006, they had done a lot of research on RCC, and actually I was in Atlanta at the time, in a similar position as Wayne had said, the Southeast Cement Association, and we were holding an RCC symposium, and they came out to learn more about it there. Then in 2007, they did their first project, which was the Phase 1, Stage 1 facility using RCC, and it was bid as alternate. In 2009, Phase 1, Stage 2, and then in 2011 is when the entry and exit gates started, but it's the bulk of the construction is here in 2012. As far as design criteria, minimum 30-year pavement design is what they were looking at. I believe what they got is much higher. It's debatable, I should say. When you're talking about such a thick pavement section as you'll see, there's a lot of different opinions and schools of thought. the type of loadings we're looking at for a top picker, container stacker you see here. Ultimately, the designers boiled it all down to 2.3 million TEUs, which is truck equivalent units, trying to convert that into trucks or a common denominator. The pavement section that they came up with, and they have two, but the primary section is 8 inches of stabilized subgrade, a 4-inch drainage layer, and they have a geotextile fabric in there, and then 12 inches of CTB. And what they actually did was took concrete, or are taking concrete from the site, crushing it, sizing it, and using it for cement-treated aggregate base. And then 18 inches of RCC pavement on the surface. And this is for the container storage yards. They do have another section that's a little leaner than this, 14 inches of RCC and 8 inches of CTB for the travel lanes. And it seems a little counterintuitive, but the reason the thicker section is where all the containers are is not just the weight of containers, but the impact loads from them banging and slamming them and so forth. You know, they stack them full, they'll stack them 5 high. I guess not all of the operators are tender when they handle that stuff. But again, it's a pretty stout pavement section. When we look at the results of the design in terms of the subgrade, and realize a lot of this material is dredged out of the channel and so forth. It's very much local material that they're using, not the most stable. They decided to use a 5% lime treatment and follow it with a 5% cement treatment. The cement treated base, they averaged about 6.5% cement. And they're looking at 500 PSI, 7 days is the target minimum for compressive strength, of course. The RCC pavement, what I've seen so far on the 3 projects has been a type 1-2 cement. Binder content will vary depending on the situation, meaning the percent of cement, of course. But ultimately, they're operating in that range of 450 to 550 pounds. Generally, I see more in the neighborhood of 450 to 500. But again, 7-day compressive strengths, 4,000 PSI. And this is just typical mixed design ratios, not specific to this project, just to give you kind of an idea. If you look at the water content, 20 to 30 gallons. I've seen them go as low as about 18 gallons. And just a recap of the process. We produce, we transport, we place and test. And again, out at the Port of Houston, because we're looking at thicker sections, we're using multi-lift placement. And that's something that is done, but fairly unique. When folks ask me questions about dual lift RCC placement, I answer their questions, of course, but knowing that most people won't run into these situations outside of a port facility or a very heavy industrial use. This has already been talked about: moisture density testing, strength testing, molding cylinders, and so forth. I touched on this at the beginning. The level surface was critical to them, and I have some background in construction, and I'm always a big advocate of specifying for what you need. Don't specify the Cadillac or the Lexus or whatever if you don't need it. You know, if you just need a Chevy. So I discussed this and debated this with them. I thought, well, 3/8 of an inch should be fine, maybe even a 1/2 an inch. Their concern was not so much the speed of traffic or the things we'd normally think about, but if you take one of those containers and set it on a high spot and you stack 2 and 3 and 4 more on it, that bottom one's going to crush. And that's a bad thing, of course. But when you're surrounded by stacks and rows of all these containers, you don't want to block off and barricade a lane to get in there and access this one that crushed. So it really was something that they stuck to their guns on and was critical. I did touch on this, the first project that was done in 2004. Interesting thing here is that the average production was 2 acres per month. We moved to 2007 and do the first RCC project, and our rate of production went way up from 2 acres per month to 8 acres. 2009, 8.5 acres per month is what they were averaging in the Phase 1, Stage 2. The one they're doing now, of course, it's the entry-exit gates. It's the third project that they've done in RCC, and again, holding still, they were hopeful that they would get actually a little higher production than this. I'm rounding down on this production rate for this phase. It's still comfortably in that 8 acres per month of placement. So it's tremendous production rates, and I know folks have mentioned that, but I thought that was interesting to kind of illustrate. As far as savings, from what their experience is at the Port of Houston, they're saving anywhere from 25 to 40% costs on over conventional concrete placement. And again, for the same reasons we've talked about, no forms, joining, and so forth. And I just have a few photos here to show some of what's progressed. One thing I'll point out is I mentioned that they have 1,000+ acres at this Bayport terminal. Now, not Port of Houston completely, just the Bayport terminal. Does not include Barber's Cut or any of their other facilities. And they're currently at roughly 215,000 cubic yards of RCC placed. That's roughly 15% complete where they're at now. They do expect to be completely built out in 15 to 20 years. A lot of the occurrences of the last handful of years have slowed the generation of the revenue to be able to invest in the next phase, just like everyone else is facing in the country. But they're chugging along, and so it's really fascinating the amount of land that they have available right now to be developed, and they know with the Panama Canal opening up here in the very near future, it's going to be important to have this land developed, ready, and available. But the reality is, when they open a new phase, they're already filling it up, even in this economy. So it's an impressive situation. But with that, I'll turn it back to Wayne here.